It's pretty easy to see how the first and second generations of the 4680 battery are different. It's not easy to tell the difference from the top, but it's clear from the bottom. The main venting system in the first version is made up of a small pop-rivet device and a ball bearing under the material. Inside the first version, there is a copper tab at the bottom that holds everything together and connects the battery to the can. This tab has been taken away in favor of small welds in the second generation, as you can see here. We saw that there are two types of cells that we looked at. Some have 9 welds and others have 12. This episode is the only one that shows the cutting-edge battery technology inside the Tesla Cybertruck. Sandy, Munro, and Tom, two of our experts, will be taking apart the 4680 battery. You'll have a front row seat to the innovations that will shape the future of electric cars. Today, we'll talk about how the new 4680 battery is different from older ones in terms of its architecture. For better performance and safety, new materials have been added and others have been taken away. We'll also go into great depth about the battery's inner parts, including the groundbreaking dry electrode process. Stay tuned as we go inside Tesla's newest electric wonder. Also, don't forget to sign up for Tesla Stock News to stay up to date on everything that's happening with electric cars and battery technology. Today, Sandy, Munro, and Tom, two of our experts, go into great detail about battery technology. Tom is the only one wearing gloves, which means that everyone else has run out. As the expert in charge, Tom will take care of all the battery parts and stress how important it is to be careful around battery dust and dried chemicals, which you should never breathe in or eat. To protect against these possible dangers, they've improved their ventilation system to keep the air clean. These batteries are handled very little and are put back in a safe place right away after the show. This is a strong reminder to our users that they should not try this experiment at home. It needs to be handled by professionals and is not for the faint of heart or beginners. To start the conversation, Dr. Tom breaks down the basics of batteries by talking about anodes, cathodes, and collectors. Besides that, he will look at the changes between the new 4680 battery model and the older one. Sandy took cells out of the Cybertruck battery and showed off a cell from the 2022 Model Y structure pack. The Cybertruck cell is still charged, which is unusual in the industry and shows how innovative their extraction process is. However, not all extracted cells are checked because of safety concerns, such as small leaks or dents from the extraction process. Because they care about safety and quality, only the cells that are in the best shape are chosen for electricity testing. Their strict selection process shows how much they want to improve battery technology while keeping their team and customers safe. Sandy, Munro points out a big change in the new generation battery's design. The copper tab that used to be at the bottom has been taken away. This tab used to be very important for connecting and making it easier for the electrical links to the battery can. This part has been taken away, which means the style is becoming simpler. Nowadays, small welds are used instead, and they do the same job. These welds not only keep the necessary electrical connections, but they also make the building more efficient by cutting down on the number of parts that need to be used. This decrease in the number of parts makes the manufacturing process easier and may improve the battery's reliability and lifespan by reducing the number of places where it could go wrong. Welds can also make the battery pack use less energy overall because they lower the resistance in the electrical links compared to the bulkier copper tabs. This design improvement is part of Tesla's continued work to improve battery technology in their electric cars so that they can lower costs, make production more scalable, and make the batteries work better. By making these changes, Tesla keeps pushing the limits of battery technology, setting new standards for the electric car market in terms of energy density and efficiency. As they looked more closely, they saw that the seam patterns inside the batteries were not all the same. Some cells had 9 welds, while others had 12. The difference between these two isn't just a small one, it's a design evolution that could make the battery stronger and work better. These welds are carefully put on through the end cap, centered on a ball bearing at the core, and then soldered directly to the cap. This gets rid of the need for the middle devices that were used in the first-generation batteries. This makes things easier, which cuts down on costs and the amount of parts needed. It also makes more room inside the cell, which could increase energy density, which is a key factor in how well the battery works. Tesla has made big claims about how energy density can be improved, and our experts can't wait to try these claims so that we can give you correct and confirmed information. Their focus is on the inside of the cell, especially the flower tab design of the cathode, which gathers tabs from the jelly roll anode side. This new design makes it possible for a larger contact area, which lowers the risk of overheating and makes it possible for the cell to handle more power. Sandy talks about the changes in the materials used in the first and second generations of jelly rolls. One big difference is that the cathode side has less cobalt and is now mostly made up of nickel. This shows that people are still working to make battery materials work better and last longer. Before, a lot of manufactured graphite was used in Gen 1 cells, and similar materials may still be used in the current generation. Sandy, Munro, and Tom wrap up their in-depth look by stressing how important the divider is in battery technology. When you look at it briefly, the separator might seem like an ordinary part, but it is very important for keeping the battery safe and working properly. This thin layer, which is usually made of a porous polymer, is put between the cathode and the anode, which are the battery's two main reacting parts. The separator's main job is to keep the cathode and anode from touching each other directly, which could cause electrical sparks and catastrophic battery failures. Even though it's thin, it's designed to stand up to the battery's working stresses and stay intact for the life of the battery. Because the separator keeps these wires from touching, there is no chance of short circuits, which are not only dangerous but could also cause major problems or even fires. The divider also makes it easier for the ions inside the battery to move around, which is very important. It lets ions move through the electrolyte, a liquid that conducts electricity from one side of the battery to the other. This movement of ions is very important when the battery is charging and discharging because it lets energy be stored and released. The porous nature of the separator makes it good at this job while still keeping the wires from touching each other. For that reason, this part not only helps the battery work electrically by letting ions flow, but it also protects the battery by keeping its reacting parts physically separate. Because it does two things, the separator is an important part of modern batteries that help keep them safe and efficient. This shows how important it is to the general structure of batteries. Sandy and Tom say again how important these new technologies are and how they could change the electric vehicle business. Their expert research continues to give useful information about how battery technology has changed over time, making sure that the audience is aware of these important changes. Sandy, Munro, and Tom continue their in-depth breakdown on Munro Live. This time, they talk about the filter inside the battery. Even though it looks a lot like earlier versions, our experts are carefully studying it to make sure there aren't any small changes. The electrolyte, which is also very important, is also being looked at. Even though they've been paying close attention, a full study has not yet been done to look for possible differences. When you look at the positive terminal, or cathode, it has a tab that looks like a dime and is topped with a rubberized gasket. It looks almost the same as older types. Sandy does say, though, that the part in the Cybertruck's battery looks a little more fragile at first glance. It has been hard to take out cells for testing without causing leaks or dents, but they are sure that they can do more testing now that they have proven their skills. Our experts talk about the basic physics of lithium-ion batteries and how they charge and discharge. During charging, ions are gathered at the anode, which is usually made of graphite. During discharge, the ions move back to the cathode and give power. This cycle is very important for the battery to work and last a long time. One important thing they learned from their research is that the anode of the new generation cells has silicon, which wasn't there in the Gen 1 models. This addition probably helps to raise the energy efficiency, which is a key factor in how well batteries work. Scientists are also looking into other differences that might slightly increase the energy density. They are mainly confirming the presence and effect of silicon, which is what the makers said might happen. Moving on to the metals that make up the battery, Sandy makes a good point about the lack of manganese. It is said that there are three main metals that you should look for inside a battery: nickel, manganese, and cobalt. Cobalt is mostly used to put out fires. There is nickel and cobalt in these batteries, but no manganese. This makes them seem a little different. Cobalt has been used with nickel and cobalt for a long time because it helps stop fires, which makes the battery safer. Manganese isn't used in the new designs, which suggests a strategic decision. This is probably because the dry electrode process has improved and can now be used successfully on both the cathode and the anode in the newest cells. It is thought that this process improvement will make a big difference in the design and efficiency of the battery as a whole. Lastly, our experts look at the special safety features of the battery's end cap, which are meant to handle too much pressure. The cap has a metal support with pop rivet-like attachments, but what's more important is that it has two vents that can safely let pressure out in certain situations. A bigger part of the cap can come off and be used as an extra vent in case of emergencies. This dual vent system is an important part of the design,